Hello, Mike Kako. Welcome to a new episode of What School You Went, where we start every conversation with this question because, well, that's how we connect here in Hawaii. I'm Ron Mizutani, and today we're talking about the Manapua man. And I have to say it, the Manapua lady, because they're out there as well. Every community has one, and you know when they've arrived. You know, growing up in Hawaii in the 70s, there were a few ice cream trucks and even food trucks. Instead, we had the Manapua man. When the Manapua man beeped his horn, the whole neighborhood came running. Even though he rolled up in what some would consider a roach coach, his van carried our island treasures. I want to welcome my old friend Lanai Tabura to this conversation. Lanai is a DJ, a comedian, TV host, actor, one of the busiest guys I know, with Full of Aloha as well. Aloha, brother. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Is
So
it
good
like
to have
old as in age or old as in I know you
with
long
all due
time?
respect, one of my mature friends.
Okay, I take that. I'll take that.
First thing first, what school you in?
I went Lanai High School. Yeah, hail, 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 Lanai High.
Sing me a first, your alma mater.
Oh my
portion of it.
gosh! I usually ask people that,
Right.
and they always forget. Now I forget. Can you ask me that in a little bit?
I will. I'll come back to that. But you folks were the
Pine Lads.
Pine Lads. That's
which
right.
I don't know what is till today. I don't know what it is. It's a Pine Lad and Pine Lasses was the girls.
Some of the best athletes come out of
Yes,
Lanai.
for sure.
You know, we had Jimmy Fernandez was my classmate
Oh,
at
really?
Kamehameha Schools, and
Was he really?
the guy could do. I'm not kidding you. 400 or 500 sit-ups, push-ups.
Yes. Yeah, physical fitness
Physical
was
fit.
was the thing, and
That-
he was an amazing wrestler too.
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
Yes, he was.
Yeah, well, I didn't know you guys were classmates.
Yeah,
I know Jimmy very
classmates.
well.
Yeah,
so
Jimmy.
you're a couple years older than me.
Oh, just a couple. So yeah, just a couple. But yeah, because the Lanai lads, and then the Molokai farmers.
Molokai Farm. So it's funny because when they were our rivals, right?
Right.
Whenever we went to play with each other or against each other, their gym was packed. The whole island show up.
Sure.
There was nothing else to do. When they came to see us, our gym was packed. When we went to see them, they would put our faces on pineapples, and the farmers would harvest us, like plow us over. And it was so funny, but that was like our rival.
Yeah, the Molokai farmers. I have a story about the Molokai farmers. I'll share with you on another show.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the Manapua man and Manapua lady. Growing up on Lanai, though, did you folks have a Manapua truck?
We didn't, but we had a place that sold them. And then, of course, you had people who sold them in the park, Dole Park, in the middle of the island. And then I spent most of my summers either here or Maui. So I got to experience the Manapua man as far as I can remember, you know. What's cool, too, is I was part of a Manapua man documentary about 10 years ago, and it just surfaced on YouTube, because I guess it wasn't on YouTube. So I got to watch it. It's pretty cool, because it still doesn't matter what era it is. It's still the same concept, idea, and, you know, roach coach, like you said.
Yeah. You know, of course, the Chinese, our Chinese immigrants came here to work in the plantations. They say char siu bao, right?
Yeah. So I have two stories.
Yeah.
Can I share my two
Yes,
stories?
please, absolutely.
So the bao came from that, and it was a mound of pork on a piece of bread. And in the 1800s, the Hawaiians saw it and said manapua'a.
Right.
And they said mound of pork, and they mispronounced it to manapua. But then also there was another version with the Hawaiian word that means snack, and I can't remember the name of it, but I've got these two different versions from a handful of kupuna, and there was like 50-50.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did you get?
I remember because, you know, back in the Heights, we had to learn about mea ono.
Mea ono.
Mea
That was
ono.
the other
Yeah,
one,
So
yes.
it was like a pastry.
Right.
But of course, the pua'a story is stuck
pork.
as well. And that makes sense because now we all say manapua.
Right.
And a lot of people don't know where manapua came from.
Right.
They think it's a Chinese word.
Yeah,
Or
and
even a
I
Hawaiian,
have,
yeah.
you know, I do a lot of food things now the last 10 years of my career. I've had chefs from all over the world when they come, from China even, from Hong Kong, they tell me, what is this manapua? We want to taste, you know, because they don't know. It obviously derived from the bao, and it was smaller. And then Filipinos have their own as well. And then you have Taiwan has a little different from Hong Kong. Everyone has their own, I guess. But ours is different from everybody's.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even the char siu bao, I say manapua.
Yeah.
But even the char siu bao in Chinatown is different from
Yeah.
some.
Where's your spot?
Oh gosh, my go-to used to be Libby's.
Mine too.
Yeah, God bless
57
them.
years.
So sad.
So the grandkids just wanted to retire. So I asked I was there when they announced it, and I asked if we could have the recipe or at least carry on. They didn't want it.
Yeah.
Share it with anybody.
Interesting, huh?
I like Royal Kitchen.
Yes.
I think they've been open since 1982 or something like that.
Do you know the story behind Libby's pink box?
Yes, I kind of do.
Yeah.
So
What's your version?
Okay, so do you know? Have you ever heard of the Donut King?
Yes.
Out of L.A.
Yes.
He's Cambodian.
Yes.
He would create that empire. Same story I heard.
Same story.
Yeah. So basically, everyone was putting everything in a white box, and he thought, how could I be different? So they used the pink box, right?
Same story.
Okay.
Same story.
We're on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah. And boy,
We're like Manapua historians, huh?
I'm gaining weight just talking about it. But when the Manapua man used to come to town, true story. I mean, everybody would even know the sound of his
Yes.
van or a truck, the beep.
Yeah.
And, it was just a mad race to get to the Manapua man. And it wasn't only about Manapua. I mean,
No.
you slide that plexiglass that they all seem to
Yeah.
have. And it's Manapua, fried saimin.
Yes.
I mean, what's your memories?
It's it is that. I think the fried noodles was actually my main thing for the Manapua man. As much as I liked Manapua, for some reason I got that Manapua in the plastic bag.
Yeah.
And then it was always ice cream or
Right.
some kind of soda or passion orange or whatever. But it was always the noodles. And then I remember
The fried noodles was always oily.
it had to be, or else it wasn't true to the game.
Right,
It's not the real thing if it
Right.
wasn't oily, right?
Yeah.
And then they would have chow fun, and I loved the chow fun.
Yeah.
But there was a truck that I used to go to. I think it was in Aiea, our van. My cousins live in Aiea, so it was either Aiea or Wailua. That they always had kon sushi, and that's not Chinese. That was Japanese, right? But they just showed you kind of how the plantations
Yep.
brought all of us together.
Yeah.
I do this food tour now. I've been doing it for 8 years, and they're private. And I take you to Kalihi, and then we do a whole thing, and we stop at Chawan Cam. Used to be Libby's. We do Chawan Cam. We do the taro chip factory. We do Young's. And I tell the history of the plantation from when the Chinese came in 1790 all the way to, when they came in 1852 for the sugar plantation and all that. So I'm very aware of the backstory behind all of these different foods. So when you said, hey, you come talk Manapuma, I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I love
For
this
sure.
stuff.
For sure. My God, you just sent me back to growing up in Hanamaulu on Kauai. And
Oh,
so my grandparents, or my great-grandparents, like probably yours, they immigrated to the islands. My great-grandfather, Walter Schumacher, he
Oh,
was
nice.
6'9",
that's where you
biggest
got the
German.
height.
Well, I don't know about that. I'm shrinking, but it's true. After you're a certain age, they
Yeah.
start to go down.
The belly drags you
The belly
down.
drags you down. God, funny. But growing up in the plantations, and knowing their history, and my grandfather being German, my mom's side, my grandfather was half Spanish, half Korean,
Oh,
and the mom's side was German, Japanese, Hawaiian. Dad's side, same thing, and it's right. It's the cultures all coming together,
Yeah.
and sometimes it would show up in a Manapua truck, Manapua man truck. It's
and
amazing.
it really brought the neighborhood together, right?
Yeah.
We had an ice cream truck come to my neighborhood in Punch Bowl 2 weeks ago. We never get the ice cream truck. I've never seen an ice cream truck in years, but the music was blasting, and it's the first time I knew most of my neighbors, but there were some neighbors I've never met. It's always a hi-by, drive-by, and I live in a dead-end street. And the ice cream truck came out, and everybody piled out of the house. It was like 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the afternoon, and it was a trip. And I was telling my brother, I go, look, when's the last time you seen everybody come out of their house to meet together?
Right.
And he was like, it's kind of like the Manapua truck. I go, exactly. But everyone came for ice cream.
Yeah, it's great memories. Now you show up in a white van and people run.
Yeah.
Right? Because
You might get kidnapped.
nothing good can be coming out of that. But, and not to be stereotyping, but many of them were Chinese.
Yeah.
And I know the Manapua lady. I know Mrs. Lee, and I'm sure they made pretty good money.
Oh, they made great
They work
money.
hard.
Yeah.
But,
Remember when it used to be a quarter?
yep.
I guess probably showing our age, but it was really affordable.
Oh, yeah.
Not too long ago.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, 100 years ago. But
Well, that's what made it sweet, special,
Yes,
rather.
yeah.
You as a child could go show up with 50 cents and
right.
and you still could have
A meal.
a meal,
Yeah.
and a soda.
Somebody asked me today, one of my guests asked me today, how come so many Chinese are here? And I said, if you actually look at most Hawaiians have Chinese last names, because the first wave of Chinese that came 1852 to work on the sugar plantation was 30,000 single men, and they never saw brown women before. That's why most Hawaiians have Chinese last
right.
names,
That's
you know.
right.
And we got to
Interesting.
thank them for the noodles and the rice too.
Roger that. And the dim sum and the
Yeah.
pork hash, which by the way was part of the Manapua.
That goes hand in hand, right?
man's truck. Oh, yeah, you cannot have without the other.
If you buy a box and you show up to somebody's house with manapua, there better be
You
pork
better
hash.
have pork hash.
And what is the other one?
Pepiao.
Pepiao. A half moon.
Half moon, yeah.
Yeah.
Half moon. Oh my gosh. And I mean, this is something else that I love with the Manapua man too. Although it's hard to find these days, is rice cake.
Oh yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
and not many people make rice cake
Yeah.
anymore.
Shawan Cam does a pretty good
do.
one. Yeah, and I think they're even doing a brown rice cake
Yeah.
for the healthy.
Right.
Yeah, you can't do that. But hey, whatever.
What's the point?
Yeah.
It's like having a Big Mac with a Diet Coke.
Right.
Oh, I like the taste. Never mind, because I'm chubby.
Or a loco moco with no gravy.
What's the point?
It doesn't make it a loco moco
Doesn't make
anymore.
it at all. So Lanai didn't have a Manapua truck,
Yeah.
but you guys would have it at lunch sometimes.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
our school cafeteria was so small, and everybody, you know, when you when you live in a small community like that, you have one school, one high school, one elementary, one intermediate, same campus, same kitchen, cooking for everybody. Everyone at my time, 30 was the minimum, 50 maybe was the biggest class, so it was manageable to make real food. You know, nowadays I feel sorry for the kids who are getting, you know, processed frozen food. But we had real good food. I remember for snack, we'd have Spam and rice, like fried Spam, literally. Every once in a while, we would have chicken luau.
Wow.
We even had lau lau once, like on a Friday. But once a month, I remember they would make manapua, and it was from scratch. So it tasted real, you know. It wasn't something that was frozen and then they warmed up. It was really good, and it's probably one of my biggest memories of school is my cafeteria.
Yeah.
And for years, one of the ladies, she's, you know, everybody at Lanai High School gets sent their first, you know, if you're a brand new teacher, you go Lanai, or you go Molokai, or you go Maui. They were sent to the small country schools. So I remember our school cafeteria lady, Miss Mao, she was very young. She's like almost the same age as us. Like when I was 17, she was 23 or 24. She's now at Wailua High School, but she was awesome because all the older ladies when she went in, they taught her, okay, this is the school where you can make real food.
Wow.
You know, so Manapua was one of them.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. They called it Manapua.
Yeah,
No kidding.
yeah, and everybody knew what day it was Manapua Day.
Everybody in school
The whole
that day.
school showed up for lunch.
Nobody playing hooky on that day.
No,
You know, we talk about Manapua man, the truck, the van, whatever the vehicle they showed up in. I got to ask you, because I know you just came back from, San Francisco, the great food truck race.
Yeah.
Congratulations on the first victory.
Thank you.
Aloha Plate really made a big splash. In fact, one of your stops was Minneapolis, and my son
Yeah.
was there.
That's right.
Supporting you guys.
That's right.
And I think you guys served Spam that day.
Yeah,
Spam sandwich.
because that's where it was made.
Right,
Minnesota. Yeah.
But second go around, it was like the All-Star Finals.
It was the All Stars. They just showed the final last night. We got eliminated 3 weeks ago, so we made it to the Final Four. It was very challenging, to say the least. It was during the pandemic. The city was empty. It was a ghost town. You were in some of the trucks. Half of the trucks are from California,
Right.
so they had their families. Which I'm not making any excuses, but it was a tough competition. You're dealing with guys who own 4 or 5 restaurants. Waffle Love owned 10 restaurants. The guys who won, I think they own 3 restaurants and 4 trucks. These guys are machines that do this every day for a living. We were the old guys who don't do this every day, and, you know, a food truck. My back was sore for weeks, man.
Because after you folks were eliminated, all due respect to the show, my wife and I said we're out. So
Thank
I know
you.
last night was the finale. But
Yeah.
who?
Lime truck.
Lime Truck won.
Yeah, Lime truck. Thank God they won. Because,
Yeah.
the other guys were just crybabies.
Yeah.
They cried every day.
Every time.
Every day. Every
Every
week.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was getting a little frustrated. Actually, in the words of my daughter, I was getting a little irritated.
Oh, yeah.
some
Well,
of them,
thanks for
but-
watching.
Yeah, of course, man. Represent.
It's
you
been
know?
cool to walk around, in the store and walk around the streets, how many people actually watched the show.
Oh, Food Network
It's
is
awesome.
huge.
Yeah.
I mean, you know that. You live with. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all about food. What school you went, and where's your favorite hamburger steak?
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's our daily conversation.
Where is your favorite hamburger steak?
Good question. Meg's Drive-In Kalihi.
Oh, Meg's is
Bruh,
awesome.
Let me tell you.
Meg's is great.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
my friends who say, "Oh, come on," I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It's the gravy. The secret to a good hamburger steak is
It's
the
the gravy.
Is the brown gravy.
You know who has a good one?
Who?
Jane's Fountain.
Oh,
Leliha.
been there, done that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the original Leliha Bakery.
Yeah.
I really like a charred
Yes.
hamburger.
Hamburger.
once in a while.
Yeah. Not
That's really
overcooked.
good. Yes.
Yeah, not burnt, but
Yeah.
yeah, Jane's Fountain, that is a iconic institution.
80 something years now they've
Amazing.
been open. So
Yeah.
go support them, you guys.
Yes,
We got to
please.
keep these guys open
Jane's Fountain is a must do. If you've
Yeah.
never been to Jane's Fountain, you got to go check that out.
for sure.
When I think about the Manapua man and Manapua lady, though, you don't see them. They're rare these days,
Yeah.
and you can say, oh, it's because 7-Eleven or food trucks
Yeah.
in general
Yeah.
have stolen some of that.
We still have them though.
We still have them.
Yeah.
I saw one in Pro City. I saw
yeah.
one in
Eva Beach. I saw
Eva
one.
Beach.
Mhm.
They still have them.
I was thinking of when I did the documentary with those guys. I told them somebody needs to come out with a chain,
Right.
like a fleet of Manapua trucks. Make them look a little bit
Yeah.
nicer.
Yeah,
You know,
well,
but
not too nice.
Yeah.
because there's a shave ice guys that go around right now. It's too
too
commercialized.
fancy. Yeah.
yeah,
No, you got to have the sliding door on
and
the
the broken
side.
speaker.
Gotta have broken speaker.
Right.
You gotta have one guy who cannot speak good English.
Okay,
and you gotta have that plexiglass.
you got to have the plexiglass.
right.
Yeah.
You can't fake that. It has to be look like that.
Oh, shucks. And the horn got to kind of work, but not really. Yeah, I mean we're stereotyping, but it's really a part of who we.
It
who
is.
who our Hawaii is. Yeah.
It is. Does anybody else have one?
I don't know.
I don't know anybody else has that type of truck.
Yeah.
Right, or van, I should say.
Well, they do, but they're doing really different things.
Yeah.
Again, if you show up in a white van these days, people are gonna call HPD on you.
right.
But that's not the case.
Well, I'm good you're covering this topic.
But
'cause
it's a must do.
you have to carry on the tradition.
Well, I didn't know there was a documentary, so I'm kind of late to the party.
Yeah, no, well, it was done by Mauna Loa High School video class.
Oh, cool.
It was like a class project, but it was nice. They did a really good job with it.
Oh, I got to go check
Yeah.
that out.
It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube. YouTube, that's another one of those social media things that I got
Yeah.
to get used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I asked our team, hey, how do I start a podcast? Then I said, oh, just call Lanai. He's got like 50 of them.
This needs to be on camera.
Well, when I lose 35 more pounds,
No,
I'll
you
let
look
you know.
fine. You look fine.
I'm going to ask you to come back one day and we're going to talk
I'd love
story.
to, anytime.
I got so much that I want to ask you. I mean,
Love to
you're
come
my
back.
dear friend, but you're a busy man. You're looking great, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
looking
you.
great. Kind of making me upset. But,
We should go paddle one day.
yeah, somebody saw me the other day and said, "Oh, you stopped paddling, huh?" I said, yeah. That's
You
why
know,
I'm
you
not
do
okay.
6 weeks of paddling and you're in shape already.
True that.
Yeah.
Not if you find the Manapua man, though. All right, hey, Lanai, good to see you.
No, thanks
Please
for having
stop
me.
by real
Yes.
soon. And
Congratulations on your new gig.
well, thank you very much.
And I'm glad you're doing this. This is cool.
Yeah, very cool. And I appreciate you, all that you do for this community.
You
Seriously,
too.
You
too.
You are definitely somebody who is inspirational, but also you're a mentor to a lot of
you.
folks. That's another way of saying you owed.
Thank you. I
All right,
appreciate
mahalo nui for joining us on What School You Went. Until next time, mahuyo.
What School You Went is a PBS Hawaii production. Music by Taimane Gardner. If you enjoyed this episode, let us know on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and tell your friends. You can find us on pbshawaii.org and everywhere you get your podcasts.